Hi, everyone. I'm here with David Wright. David is a personal trainer at Fitness for 10 in Carson City, and he's in our media studio there right now. Thanks for being here, David.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
All right, so I want to say, I get people arguing about a lot of things on my channels, from TikTok to Instagram to YouTube. And fasting is one that is so controversial. And there's so many studies on it. Some people, a lot of people who have tried it swear by it. But there's a lot of different types of fasting, and there's different reasons for it. Now, fasting was not the best thing for me to do in my 20s. It just wasn't. I'm in my 60s now. I restrict I do time restricting eating pretty much every day. I don't eat past 5 or 6 at the latest, and I don't start eating till usually, 11. So I can do it now. I'm in my 60s, and it benefits me. My blood work improves. But the arguments are, is it really working? And the people, and I've listened to doctors on both sides. I've listened to doctors that I really respect on both sides and appreciate their knowledge and their research, that will dispute this. And a lot of the doctors and the people that are into the science say that it's not the fasting that's giving you the benefit. When you're fasting and you're going long periods of time without eating, you're in a calorie deficit. That's what's causing the benefit. I agree. So I'm saying at minimum, when you're not eating, you're in a calorie deficit. And that's going to benefit the body unless you do it forever and you starve yourself. What do you think, David?
Yeah, I would agree. I've heard a lot about fasting. I've tried fasting myself. I mean, and keeping in mind too that when you have scheduled eating, you mentioned kind of what you do. I have a different schedule for myself in terms of when I eat. But a lot of people have to understand. They're thinking, because I've heard the argument of, well, I don't know that I could do fasting because maybe it's a 16 and 8 type of split, or whatever that fasting, intermittent fasting that they want to do. And I'm like, well, look at it this way: the amount of time that you're sleeping, for instance, you're fasting anyway, right? Breakfast, breaking the fast in the morning. So we have to think of it as you already do fast to an extent for however many hours you're asleep. So from the time you stop eating at night to the time you wake up in the morning and eat breakfast or eat something, you're fasting already. So some people look at it as, well, I don't want to even try it because it's going to be too difficult. I can't go X amount of hours without eating. When in reality, maybe it's adding an extra hour or two at night and an hour or two in the morning where they just adjust when they eat. And there's that, 12 hours or whatever the case might be. I think there's definite benefits to fasting. And to your point, there are a lot of different reasons and a lot of different lengths of fasting. So when you get to kind of the longer 24-hour fasts and these things that go for longer periods, that's a little different story than, say, like, again, I use the 16 and 8 split, where in an 8-hour period is when you eat your food, 16 hours you're fasting. That type of thing's pretty common for folks who are trying intermittent fasting. And for some people, you're right. I mean, they swear by it. It works wonders for them. And I look at it as, how do you feel? How do you physically feel when you're doing it? That's going to be your gauge. So if it doesn't work for your neighbor, your coworker, for me, for Steve, whomever might say, well, it doesn't work for me, that doesn't mean it's not going to work for you and how you feel and how your blood work comes out and just your overall well-being. So my thought is, I don't mind doing fasting. Right now, it's not really a thing for me because of my show prep. But, on a regular basis, there are times when I might just do some intermittent fasting just to kind of mix it up a little bit, do something a little bit different, challenges your body. And to the other point you're in a calorie deficit that time when you're fasting. So that's helpful for me to keep down body weight, when I'm not prepping for shows and having the different preps that I have right now. So I think there's definite benefits to it, but I think it's, each person's going to have their own kind of experience. Their body's going to have their own reaction to, to fasting and how much it's going to do for them.
You brought something up that I was going to bring up anyway. Let's get into why it's probably not beneficial to you right now for what your goals are. It's not beneficial to fast. So here's some variables. What's your body composition? If you have a 35% body fat composition, you don't need to eat. I'm not trying to be mean, but you don't need to eat. You've got plenty of energy on your body. You got 35% body fat. If you go 24 hours without eating, you're not going to die. Okay, it's not going to happen. Now, someone like you who is in between shows and 6% body fat, which you're not going to keep your body fat at 6% all the time, right. But you don't have any energy on your body except for the stored energy, mainly in the form of glycogen from the carbohydrates that you eat. So it's more important with what your goals are and what your body composition is to eat more often. I'm at, we checked my body composition. I'm at 13.5% body fat, which is really lean for an old guy like me, but I'm not going to die either if I don't eat in 24 hours because I've got 13.5% body fat on my body. Now, that's pretty good. I'm not saying that to brag, but I am saying it's still 13.5% body fat that my body can use for energy. So I can do intermittent fasting. And with you being a competitor, and as long as you're going to be in that game of competing, you're never going to let your body fat go over 12%, Mm-hmm. That's it. That's going to be the highest that you probably go as long as you decide that you're going to be competing. Now, when you get older like me and you're done competing, maybe you'll never be done competing, which is, motivates you to stay in shape. You might let your body composition go a little higher. And even bodybuilders like you who are trying to gain muscle will do a 24-hour fast. Why do they want to do a 24-hour fast? Because they want their body to suck up all that energy and all those nutrients when they put them in the body. So your body is sitting there waiting for them, saying, where's my food for 24 hours? And I know a lot of bodybuilders back in my days, in the olden days, they would do that as a strategy to gain weight. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. It's a really great point, in terms of if you have, 20, 30 plus percent body fat. Again, it's not saying, that you're a bad person or you're doing bad things or shame anybody. It's really to make a point of, you have an excess amount of body fat. And as we talked about in a previous video and in this one, body fat is fuel. It's that energy for your body to use to do activities, to allow you to basically live, right? So, a 24-hour fast, as a great example, you're not going to suffer, generally speaking, and, not a doctor, you're not going to suffer negative health effects unless you have some kind of a condition, that would prevent you from really wanting to not eat. But most of us don't have that. We just have that desire to eat and that fear of if we don't eat, we're going to be too hungry. We're going to do all these, these terrible things that are more in our head than actually physically happening to us. So for me, great example of, I don't have body fat right now to the point where I would have enough energy to, do the cardio and the workouts that I still need to get done to maintain my muscle mass and things like that. So I have to, basically every 2 hours I'm eating. I've got 7 meals a day. And so I'm eating constantly. But when I'm not competing, when it's kind of the off season, yes, still the same kind of goals, still in kind of a prep mode, but it's going to be different because I don't have to try to maintain, or drop even more body fat. It'll be at a healthier, more normal level, 10, 12 ish percent. So even then, if I was at 12%, I could do a 24-hour fast. Nothing's going to happen. Now, would I do 24-hour fast every other day? Probably not. But, something that's like an 18 and 6, that's easy. I could do that in a heartbeat. It's difficult sometimes to get used to, but what you have to understand about a fast is just give it a try. And again, it all can circle around, your sleeping time. And that makes it so much easier to just add some time before bed and after you get up, before you eat and after you eat there. And there's that extra time that you need to go, okay, well, yeah, I can survive 10 hours without food. No big deal, and then you can kind of make adjustments to it. And that's the point. If you have 20, 35% body fat, those things will actually be really beneficial for you. Again, that calorie deficit that you're running for a longer period of time will help start taking down the body fat. Now, that also means when you start eating, it's not, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry, I'm going to go and eat donuts or really high calorie, high fat foods. It's, the nutrition is still the biggest part of it. But the fasting can greatly help with a lot of different things. So I think as long as, we're in touch with what our nutrition should be, and we're not just going to go and gorge on ice cream when our fast is over, those types of things, you really see a lot of benefits to it.
Yeah, and we should also mention, there's other reasons to fast to improve your health. Like, for instance, diabetics, people who are pre-diabetes, they're not going to eat like you every 2 hours and do this yo-yo spike stuff with their insulin levels.
Nope.
That's not. So everyone's different. Their goals are different. Their bodies are different. So that would be dumb, in my opinion, to go eat every 2 hours and eating some carbs like you do every 2 hours for energy, rice and stuff like that. That's not ideal for someone who's diabetic.
Correct.
And someone who's really overweight, the longer term fast, you go into what's called ketosis, which is fat burning. So instead of burning glycogen, which your body uses and puts in your body, in your cells and your muscles and some in your liver, that comes from carbohydrates. But ketosis means that your body is in a fat burning mode. And you can get there by eating fats because, a low carb diets do this. And I think my opinion, it's beneficial for people who are really overweight because you want to burn the body fat. And autophagy is when you do a longer fast, 24 hours or more. Now your body is repairing itself. And you guys don't listen to me. Go do your own research. Go listen to scientists and doctors and people that do this research. But I'm just repeating the things that I've learned and what people have said from my research. So your body's going to start eating up bad cells, and it's got to get energy from somewhere. So a lot of people believe there's a benefit from that. And I've heard crazy stories of people healing all kinds of things by doing long-term fasts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely from my understanding too, Stephen, the things that I've done research on regarding that, there is a lot of information out there that, it's not necessarily everybody's going to heal everything, but it's something where it can definitely help your body kind of have that, I'll put it as kind of a rest and recovery period from food, from that overload of food that, we've all at one point or another, we're eating too much. And when you get to the point where you're, up in the body fat percents, like we're talking 25, 30%, it's had a long term of that. And so as we kind of back off and say, okay, you know what? And it could be also for medical reasons, like we talked about, but that's going to make you feel better. It's going to give your body, like you said, the ability to just relax for a minute, start repairing, start kind of healing certain things. And even if it doesn't, let's say, cure a particular ailment, a lot of times, and I go over this with my nutrition clients who are doing our hair tests here with their nutrition, a lot of the things that we're bringing and we're kind of hitting our body with constantly is making some of these problems, medical problems we might have, worse. So in things in this case, if we're lessening our body fat, we're fasting, we're kind of taking one obstacle away from our body that our body has to jump through hoops to figure out. We're taking that away, so that allows it to really focus and recover all sorts of different things. So I think it's a good thing to at least consider and really do research about how it will work for you, and give it a try if it's something that either medically would be beneficial to you, or you just want to try something a little bit different that might be beneficial for you as well.
Yeah, ask your doctor. And here's the thing about fasting. At least when you're not eating, you can't put bad food in your body because you're
Absolutely.
not eating. All right, David. So as always, we appreciate your input. Now, if people want to get a hold of you, they want to find you online, how do they do that?
Yeah, they can go to Instagram, and I have two pages. One that's my personal page showing my fitness journey, my contest prep that I'm in right now and going forward. That's at David Wright _fitness, and then at Wright Fitness Training for my personal training page.
All right. Thanks for being with us, David.
Thanks, Steve.